Hey, happy National Have a Coke Day. That's what it is today. If you didn't know it, that's what it is. So I didn't know that I actually had a day set aside for my favorite drink, but there is one. So welcome to the show. I've had a few days off, so I'm well rested, and I've got a fantastic guest for us tonight, Alberto Gonzalez. As many of you know, he is the Captain America collector on CAF and in the live streams that we all know and love. So we're gonna have a fun conversation tonight. Hey, Margaret, nice to see you. I hope you had a nice weekend. Margaret says, for me, every day is National Have a Coke Day. That is true. Have two Cokes every day is my motto. So let me bring Alberto into the stream and get this show on the road here. Hey, Alberto, how you doing?
Hey, y'all. I'm doing good. How are you?
I am not bad at all. We had a little internet glitch there right before we got started here, so that's why we're a minute or so late. But all is well, Alberto. So nice to have you on the channel. I mean, I know you've been on the show once before, but not a show that over the last couple of years since we got things rolling over here. So I appreciate all the time that you've spent in the chat supporting the as well.
I don't know if it's you freezing or if it might be me freezing a little bit, but there's a little bit of stuttering that I can see.
It could still be on my end. It may very well be. Yeah, everybody's saying ruh-roh. Yeah, I don't know. I could go yell at my kids to get off Netflix. that could be it. That has been it in the past. Watch, I'll actually make a text to them so that they know. So did you not hear anything I said? I was
No,
talking?
I heard most of it.
Okay.
Even Kelly's goon seems to say that you were freezing a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna text the family, tell them get off the internet tonight. but yeah, no. We've had a good internet all night, right up until 9 o'clock, right before the show was going to start. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see if things stay well here. But so anyways, like I said, welcome to the show, Alberto. And, I see actually some of the artwork on the wall behind you we're going to be talking about tonight.
There is. I have not done a CAF Crips yet, but there is some art on the wall, even that you can see up there and pretty much surrounding where I am. So yes, there's definitely no art is hidden around here.
Yeah, I mean, do you? Well, you have a pretty large collection, so I assume a lot of it is still in portfolios, or do you hang just your best pieces? How do you decide what goes on the wall?
Most of these frames are the ones from Bags Unlimited, where you can easily just remove them and switch art as needed. So yeah, I'll switch them around every once in a while and just replace them, and as I get new art and kind of rotate them around so I don't get too tired of the same thing.
That's not a bad idea. I like that. I bought frames like that, and then I just got lazy and I never used them to switch stuff out. But that always made a lot of sense to me, because once you frame something, you're stuck, right? If you do it professionally. But having frames that you can easily take the art in and out of makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I just don't know if they're going to be as good as a professional framing job, right, in terms of the glass and the materials. But still, they seem to be good enough.
Yeah, as long as they're not in direct sunlight, I think they're all okay for the most part. So Alberto, everybody knows you as the cap collector for many reasons, obviously. But explain, I guess, talk to us about your love for comics and comic art, how that got started, and how Captain America fits into all this.
Yeah, so I really started reading comics all the way back as a teenager. I grew up in Spain. I came to the US for college, but I started reading comics in Spain. And in there, it was always a very different publishing mechanism that they do here in the US, because for some reason they decided that comics were going to be 32 pages instead of the 23 or 24 that are here in the US. So they would come up every month and a half, and it would usually be an issue and a half of whatever comic you were reading, and then they would cut it off and then continue the next month and a half. So you only got to see first 2 out of 3 covers. So one of every 3 covers would never really get published as a cover. And the cadence was a little bit longer because they were always catching up to whatever the US was publishing, then obviously translating it and all that stuff, putting in a comic and publishing. But I always got into Marvel Comics. Is always what caught my eye from the beginning. Mostly Daredevil, Iron Man, Captain America were what I focused on, and the Avengers by default, just because of Iron Man and Captain America there. But yeah, I just collected comics all the way till I came to college. I don't want to date myself, but all the way back in '93, I came to the US for college and left my comic collection behind and just kind of fell away from comics for a little bit until after graduating, when I started kind of getting back to it, collecting, trying to catch up and build my collection from there. And it was all downhill after that.
Nothing wrong with that. So you missed the early '90s and all the crazy zany stuff that was going on there with extra covers and foil variants and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, which I'm not sure is necessarily a bad thing, but yes, I didn't get to live live the whole era of Heroes Reborn, the back end of the Cap Wolf era, and some of that stuff until much later on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that kind of mirrors my collecting time too. I stopped around 90 and didn't start collecting until 90, buying comics again until about 97, 98, and then discovered art around 99. So how about you? When did you first realize you could own original comic art pages?
I had no clue until, and that'll be my first piece later when we look at it, in 2004, my local comic shop when I was living in Florida, that I would go by every week, they just had a signing with Ethan Van Sciver at the time, and I didn't know. I thought, oh, that's cool. He's the artist. He would go in and sign some comics or whatever, and he brought a portfolio of art, and he had some of it for sale, and that's where I kind of picked up my first piece of published art, and I didn't even really think about it much again until a few years later, where I started attending more cons and picking up sketches and looking at art pieces. But I don't know why I never even thought the fact that somebody was actually drawing these pages until so late in the game.
Mm-hmm. So I assume that's the first artwork that you had sent me, right, in your link
Yes.
list. So I might as well show it now, just because you're talking about it. So this was the first piece of art you picked up. That's great.
Yeah, and I know people might be shocked that my first page was not even a Marvel page, and definitely not a Captain America page. But yeah, Ethan Van Sciver, at the time when Green Lantern Rebirth was first coming out, he was signing up. When the first issue came out, he was signing issues and brought a portfolio, and this was from, I believe, issue 2 or 3. It was not on the first issue, so it hadn't been published yet, but he was selling it, and I figured, why not? I would just went ahead and bought it. I don't know if anybody remembers this storyline. This was the page before Green Lantern here in the last panel kind of gets poked by Batman there. And then in the next splash page, he basically just punches Batman in there. So it was a pretty cool page. The splash was too expensive for me at the time, but I got this one, and yes, sadly, it was my last DC page for a long time after that.
Well, it's it's a nice page to start with. Yeah, definitely. But that's funny. So you just happened to see him, and he had a portfolio. So I mean, obviously you were collecting comics. Did you have any art collecting of any kind, like thing in your background prior to picking up that art page?
No, just I've always liked to collect stuff, and at that point I was collecting comics, and this LCS kind of helped me a lot through finishing what at the time were full runs of, like I said earlier, Iron Man, Captain America, and Daredevil. I had built those 3 collections from the beginning until what was being published at the time, and that's what I was focusing on. But yeah, it was all comics, taking way too much space in my little apartment in Florida, but it was fun at the time. And once I finished all the complete runs, I was like, what do I do next? So that's when I took a little bit of a break until I discovered art, and then that new bug bit me, and then it was all from there.
That's great. So, like Wes just said, why Captain America? I mean, you just mentioned that Iron Man and now I'm forgetting who the other. Oh, Daredevil. We're at the top of your list, and Avengers. So, how did you settle on Captain America as the character of choice?
I just always liked him, which was strange because coming up from Spain, you would have thought that Captain America would be the last character that I can really relate to in terms of the American ideal or whatever he represents. But he just seemed to always be the character that everybody looked up to. And in most comics, you would always see that whenever Captain America said something, everybody seemed to listen and respect him and stop and kind of show a lot of respect for somebody who really didn't have a whole lot of powers compared to anybody else around him, right? Even when you looked at the Avengers and they had at the time Thor or Iron Man, everybody definitely seemed way much more powerful, yet he seemed to be the one who everybody listened to and did whatever he said and was kind of leading the team. So I always thought that was pretty cool.
Everybody needs to stay off. Hey, yeah, I think my kids are enjoying something that I don't know about tonight, or we're just having internet problems here in Florida. Sorry about that. But I'm back. I believe I'm back. I've texted them again and said, just stay off everything so we can have all the bandwidth to ourselves, Alberto. Well, I guess that makes sense. So, I see it's funny. I was waiting for Marcus to say a Cyclops correlation there because he was the leader. Everybody respects him. That's kind of why I liked Cyclops of the X-Men as much as I loved all the other characters in it too, Wolverine or whatever. There's something always, that I liked about the guy in charge. And Cap was always the guy in charge with the Avengers too. So, in pretty much any situation Cap was involved in, he was kind of the guy in charge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we'll keep the Cyclops comments out of the conversation today.
Yes, exactly. Everybody trusts Cap. Three just mentioned. Yes, that's true. And Marcus says he already knows all the answers about why. But that's. So you were in Florida when you first got over here. Is that you went to school here?
Actually, I went to college in Boston. Then after graduating from there, I moved to Florida for a few years. Then went back to Boston for graduate school, and then finally settled in California.
That's true. I just mailed you some art, so I know exactly where you're at. We were lamenting the fact that you don't have the package tonight, so we could have done an unboxing tonight. That would have been a lot of fun.
We'll save it for another time, I'm sure.
Yeah. So so after your first page and the decision to move forward with Cap, I mean, what year was that? I mean, when was Skyver doing Green Lantern?
I believe Rebirth came out in 2004, 2005. Okay. I know I moved back to Boston in 2005 for business school until 2007. So that's at the time where I sold most of my comic collection. Like I said, I've been one of those collectors that once I finished collecting and I completed the full runs, I was like, what do I do with it? And I was moving to Boston, so I was like, I'm not carrying 600 issues of Iron Man and Captain America and Daredevil with me across the country. So I ended up selling it to that LCS and moving to Boston, and then started attending more cons while I was there and getting a little bit more into art and picking that stuff up. And I remember actually going into Comic Art Fans, and I'm sad sometimes remembering that you took down that feature, but I started attending around 2006 CAF Chat, when you had the chat part of the website, where I met a bunch of folks. I know Brian Peck was there, Malvin. We had some artists like Mike Bear that would attend pretty regularly in there. And that's where I really started kind of getting more into the comic collecting, getting more into attending cons and all that stuff.
That was a good feature. It had it had issues. It would always, it was because it was a program that ran on the server.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, the program itself had a memory leak. So after a certain amount of time, it consumed all the memory on the server to the point where you had to almost force reboot the machine unless you put it on a reboot schedule. And so I just got to the point where I just got so frustrated with it that I gave up and took it off because it was causing more headaches for me than it was solving problems on the site. But I know a lot of people used it, and a lot of people were pretty disappointed when we took it off the site. I mean, if there was a way to replace it, and maybe it's better these days. You know, I haven't, after I turned it off, I never went back to look and see if they had upgraded the product or whatnot. But I always knew I could pop in there. I didn't always chat, but I'd pop in and see how many people were in there. And it seemed like at most evenings there would be, 6 to 10 people in there chatting. And and it was up there for a couple of years. So,
and it was just very different than using the Comic Card L email list, because then you were sending out emails and waiting for other emails. The conversation was just not there.
That's true. And Marcus says it's called Discord now. That is true, Marcus. There is a Discord channel for CAF today. Yeah. Thanks to Chuck Arnold and Chris Snorick and a few others that got that thing started. We can have its own WhatsApp group. See, there's so many options today. I'm not hip to all of them.
Yeah, that at the same time is good, but also bad. I feel like these days it's so hard to be up to speed on everything going up. There's like 28 Facebook groups of people showing art and selling art and offering art and everything that is just. And then there's Discord, there's WhatsApp. I have emails with different collectors. It's hard to keep up with everything going on.
It's very true. Well, everybody likes to have their own kind of slice of the pie, and I think that I find it problematic too, because I'm not a member of all the art groups on Facebook either. I can't follow them all, and I get them confused. Which one is this? Is it the Sketch Prices group, or is it the another one? But it's just kind of how things go. I do like Frank Giela's group that mostly just talks about the hobby, shows off new pieces people have gotten. I follow that one probably more than any other one out there. But how many are there? There's still a dozen other OA collecting groups out there that have between 300 and 6,000 members in them. So it just gets to be a little bit much, but to each their own. I like the fact on Facebook that they have individual groups, right? You can have a group just for Sal Buscema, right?
Yeah.
Nick Adradas loves Sal. So he's got a Sal group. He's got like 3 or 4 groups for specific artists. I think that's kind of cool because you can follow a niche, if you like a particular artist.
I think he started the Gene Colan one as well. Nick Adradas, if I'm not mistaken.
That would not surprise me. But Rob Pistella likes Jeffrey Jones, so he's got a Jeffrey Jones group. I mean, it's all good, but I think I like those groups by themselves just because it helps you stay focused on a particular creator. But there is a Hembeck group out there as well. Rick Welch just said,
yes.
Is there a Hembeck collector group? Yes, absolutely.
I'm actually part of that Hembeck group. So Rick, I can definitely show you the way to the Facebook Hembeck group.
Yes, I'm a member too. I see it in my wall every time I go to Facebook. There's usually at least one post in there. So what's the CAF Discord name? I haven't been on it in a month. I always forget. But I know if I type in Comic Card Fans Discord, it'll take you there. Margaret Lee says is surprised there's a Hembeck group. I think it started like 2 months ago, right, Alberto? It's relatively new.
I got invited to it about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I think after I had did that panel group, I think it was a sketchbook for January or February, where I had posted a Hembeck and somebody else had posted a Hembeck.
Right.
I think it was a homage group, and shortly after that panel, I was invited to the Hembeck group. So,
well, that deservedly so. Once you have a Hembeck, you should be in the Hembeck group. We're actually trying to get Hembeck to do an interview show with me too. I mean, fingers crossed, he would be fun. I've only met him once at a con. Must have been 10 years ago in Columbus, and so that's definitely 10 years ago. But I'd love to have him on. He'd be a fun guest to chat with.
Yeah, and all his sketch cards seem like the prices have been going up as he's become more popular. It seems like, I tried to get a Captain America sketch card that he did a week or two ago, and it went like $150 $50, which is something that I had never seen a Hembeck sketch card go for. But I guess the secret's out.
There you go. And Mikhail's, he texted me the Mikhail, posted in the, or you can't post links in the chat, can you, Mikhail? I'm sorry, I always forget that. I'll work it over into the chat in a few minutes here. But yeah, no. I mean, I've always loved Hembeck's work. He was always such an oddity because he always would, you'd see, you know, a partial story here or there in the back of an old Marvel magazine, or usually it would be some kind of you know, Marvel related ad, you know, or something that destroys the Marvel universe or whatnot. But he was always an interesting character, right? Because at that point in time, nobody was taking a bent on how to draw anatomy in odd ways like Hembeck. So he always was just somebody who, you know, you just wondered, is this like mad, you know, a mad cartoonist infiltrating Marvel Comics? You know, what's the deal here? But yeah, I've always liked his stuff.
And it looks like #1 Marvel fans, the one that took that Cap Hembeck card.
Oh, is that it?
I'm the one who bid you up then in that case, because I know I kept going for it and until I gave up. So I probably made him pay more than he wanted to pay, just trying to figure out what the limit was.
Man, well, that's the thing. I mean, whenever you get a group of collectors who are focused on one thing, you know, whether it's a title or an artist or whatever, that tends to push the prices up a little bit. I remember when I interviewed Jeff, he talked about how he would seem to get 4 or 5 you know, Hembeck cards a week. But that was back before he started talking about how cool it was to own a Hembeck card. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure his quota of Hembeck wins has you know, slowly been going down. I mean, he's in the chat; he could confirm or deny that. But I would have to think that he's not getting as many as he used to.
Yeah.
David Matheny said you pulled an Albert as the underbidder. As we know, Albert likes to always be the underbidder on things. And I'm still trying to get this link copied over to my PC, but I'll work it over there. So you know, beyond that, though, I mean, the thing is, like you just mentioned, you know, you seem to have started out slow as an art collector, but today, to me, you're one of the more, you know, prevalent collectors out there. The pieces that you're getting are, you know, A+ home runs. You know, when you're buying a choice piece, you featured a lot on the CAF update. Pieces that you've picked out. I mean, there's I know there's a piece that we're going to feature. We're going to show it later in the show. That was you know, an early Cap, you know, with Iron Man page on it, and you know, I remember featuring that and talking about it. And so to me, you've kind of, you know, raised the bar, gone that extra mile, getting more important pieces. And you know, how easy was that kind of you know, as a change in your collecting, you know, as far as like just collecting average pages, so going after more of the high end or choice pieces where you know you're going to be in competition with other collectors?
Yeah, I think I started like a lot of people. I feel like I started with first sketches, right? Then I started just picking up any panel page that I saw that had Captain America in there. I was like, I want it. And it takes a while sometimes to realize that, yes, these are one of a kind, but there's also plenty of art out there. So then I started becoming more selective and trying to figure out, well, how can I get prime examples of some of the classic art teams of the whole series, right? And that's when I started trying to see, hey, I want to make sure I try to get one Kirby, one Colin, and being much more picky, just because, #1, as I got more picky, and that means the prices went up, which means I couldn't afford to buy as many pieces. So my collection kind of started dwindling in terms of how often I got pieces. But yeah, it was definitely an entirely new world, going from picking up pieces from just dealer websites and eBay to picking up things from Heritage and bidding on things that I never thought I would spend this much money on, to be honest.
But you're there, though. I mean, that's the thing. You know, you've made that ascension, I guess. But that's great. I mean, I think and it shows in your collection and the pieces that we're going to show, you know, later in the interview. that yeah, you're getting some of the pieces that are highly sought after, and that's awesome. I mean, I think that to me, it's fun to have pieces that are in your collection that other people respect and admire. I think that's a fun part of the hobby, and you've definitely reached that point, especially with with the cap art. You've got pieces that I'd kill for something by Zach. I'd kill for something by Byrne. And you've got great examples from both of those artists, and the two of my favorites.
Yeah, the good thing is, as you start building your collection in CAF and with all your chats and all that stuff, and people start knowing you, people reach out to me proactively many times before they sell pieces, or they are thinking of putting them up on Heritage or Comic Link and all that stuff. Of course, that comes sometimes with people thinking that I'm going to spend any amount of money, and people doing some price gauging sometimes and trying to see if I'll buy it for more than I think a price is worth before they put it out for sale. But it's nice as part of this community to just have people many times ping you and be like, hey, did you see that this cap page was posted in this Facebook group? Did you see it? And kind of be able to have people look out for each other trying to get pieces. And I think, yeah, that just came from me posting my collection and people kind of knowing that that's my niche and what I like to collect.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about how important it is to have friends in the hobby, right? Same thing for me. Whenever on the rare opportunity that an Elementals page goes on the market somewhere, I usually get about 5 or 6 emails from people saying, "Did you see this on eBay?" So yeah, no, it's nice, and it's good to have friends in the hobby that can watch your back, and yeah, it's definitely helpful. But from your perspective, because I've heard this before too, from people who have very focused collections, whatever that may be, they get approached a lot by people offering artwork. But given the fact that you do have a very focused collection, I mean, your market probably better than anyone else as far as like that character goes. What a Kirby Tales of Suspense page should go for, depending on the number of times Cap is in costume versus he isn't. I mean, so that it's almost hard to pull a fat, kind of like, throw a price out there that you're not going to say that's too high or that's fair. You're going to know it when you see it.
Yeah, which is, to be honest, also what I do find surprising, when somebody will be like, hey, I'm thinking of selling this piece. I'm thinking this much money. And I know you're a big Cap collector. And it's like, yeah, and you also know that I just added these couple pieces to my CAF Gallery, and I might have won this or that from Heritage. So I know what the price is. So at the same time, if you're going to be offering, don't try to at least give me a fair deal.
Right.
It's like the chat that we had last week, right? Where it was like, well, if you're going to make an offer to a collector on a piece that they own, you usually want to offer more. You don't want to lowball them and insult them if you're in a piece. You have to give them an offer that you think would entice them to sell something that's in their collection if they're not actively selling it. But it's kind of the same thing. If you're trying to sell a piece to somebody who knows that space, don't try to make them laugh at the offer. And it's like, no, that's not $100,000 page, no matter what you ever tell me.
Right. Well, we as collectors always like to, value the pieces that we have, at the highest level you could possibly hope. I mean, it's whether that's human nature or or it's just the way things work. I mean, you always kind of feel like your stuff, you have to value your stuff at the high end of stuff, at the high end of a price level, just because it's just the way most collectors are. Marcus asked, but what if it's fresh to market? I mean, that sure, that's a good question. To me, yeah. And well, what's your opinion, Alberto, when you think of a piece that you haven't seen ever before, first time on the market in 40 years? I mean, is that going to make you feel like you should spend more money on it than if that piece has changed hands 3 or 4 times over 40 years?
I think it depends again on the piece. Like, there was recently a Rick Levens cover, and there hadn't been any Rick Levens covers up for sale in a long time. That was hard for me to see that it was like $9,000 these days. I mean, it's a published cover. It's Captain America. It's probably worthwhile these days. It was fresh to market, and there's not a lot of those. But that, to me, doesn't necessarily drive the price up. But when big issues, like when Tales of Suspense, the whole issue 59 was broken up, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was on Heritage. It was unheard of. And I couldn't believe that they were actually breaking up the story and I could get a page. And to me, that's more like fresh to market. Is sometimes you know who owns it and you never thought that they would be selling it or splitting up the issue. And when they decide to, you just jump to it. And for example, there's the I don't know if you've done your Heritage preview yet for the June one, but there's a Golden Age Captain America. I think it might be the earliest known Captain America splash page at this point that I know it's probably going to go for a while just because there hasn't been any pages and it's fresh to market and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But if someone bought it and then someone sold it again, I'm sure just because of the kind of page that it is, it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference that it was fresh to market. So
Right. Sorry, I'm just making a note about. I need to do a Heritage preview. I always forget. They never approach me. I have to put it on the calendar. But that. I want to see that piece. I'll at some point tonight. I'll probably try to dig it up because that's. I haven't checked out the June auction at all. I mean, that sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, it's not in the best shape, and art from back in the 40s is not always as clean, as neat as some of the art that we see these days, but it's still pretty historic for sure.
There you go. Well,
just posted it. Yeah.
Captain America Comics #5 splash. All right, I'm going to pull it up while we're talking. Yeah, Brett saw it too. And Marcus continues this question. If it was presented to you first, would you pay a premium? You would probably make a fair offer, I would assume. Alberto.
Yes.
Pay a premium. I mean, what's a premium? 20% over 15, 20, 10%. Who knows? But yeah, I'm going to go over to Heritage and see if I can dig that up while we're talking. I wish everybody could post links in the chat. It would make everything so much easier.
Yeah, but you know what dangers you'd be getting into if everybody started posting links in the.
Yeah, there's probably a good reason why. YouTube's done this long enough. They're probably wise and know not to. Let's see if it. The one thing I hate, Heritage to me doesn't have the best site search. So if I type in Captain America 5, am I going to get the artwork first, or am I going to?
Yeah, you usually have to start then filtering for comic and navigate down to comic book art, which takes a couple of clicks.
Yep. I actually got to it. Here, let me share screen here. There we go. So I see what you mean. I mean, it's got a lot of glue stains on it, but dang, that is, that's going to attract a lot of interest for sure. Huh.
And it has Cap and it has Bucky tied up there in the background, and so it'll be interesting to see what it's going to go up for. But that's definitely fresh to market. But again, I don't know if it would make a whole lot of difference if it wasn't fresh to market. It will probably get a premium this time, but the price will stay pretty high up.
Right. Yeah, no, that's going to go for a pretty penny. That's for sure. Huh. That's just so neat to see, though. I mean, I have never seen, there's a few pages out there from this era of Cap or Submariner or whatnot, but yeah, this is like, a splash page, so rare. That's incredible. They probably don't talk too much about.
I'm pretty sure we'll go out of my budget pretty quickly anyway, but good luck to whoever gets it.
Well, you'll be a player at the beginning to show your interest, but that's that's pretty slick. Well, that's cool. I mean, I haven't seen a piece like that, where I'm that intrigued by it in a long time with Heritage or anybody. I mean, that's going to be cool. I'll set that on my watch list for sure. Cool. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Alberto. Wow. Bucky paving the way for Jason Todd. Yeah, that's very true. Let's see. Simon's comic says that piece wasn't in my grandfather's collection, if anyone was wondering. Well, thanks for letting us know, Simon.
That's Jesse Simon, and I don't know if he plans. I know he's been trying to get a lot of pieces from his grandfather, so I don't know if he is going to try to make a go at it.
Yeah, I don't see that. That's what I see. Where was it? Somebody asked if Heritage wrote an explanation, Knights of Old, but no, there isn't a real description on how it has surfaced after all these years. But hey, it's out there. That's what's cool about it, to actually see it. So yeah, that'll be one that I'm going to follow for sure. I think we'll get when I have Joe on, I'm sure we'll talk specifically about that piece a bit, and maybe we'll learn a little bit about potentially where it came from. I mean, they never divulge
Mm-hmm.
who the consigner is, but sometimes we get a little bit of tidbit of story on something. So yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, prior to that, what was the most intriguing cap piece that you've seen come out to market in the last, say, 5 years?
I would say to me it was still that Tales of Suspense 59, when that whole issue came up and the fact that they broke it up. And I was happy to be able to get a piece, and we'll see it in a little bit, but somehow I managed to get that piece for half of what the second cheapest page from that issue went for. So I don't know if it went through the cracks because it was like the second or the third page after the splash. So I think the splash got all the excitement. Then people waited a little bit. Then people started bidding on the later pages. But I was able to get that for what I feel was a steal, given that the second cheapest page on that issue went for twice what mine went. So
right.
I'll take.
I remember that too. I think when we did the auction recap, that we specifically discussed that there was some kind of lull, or everybody was sighing after missing out on the splash page, because there were certain pages immediately after it that felt like a bargain as you went through, and the prices started going up and up and up. So that's great that you got one of those too. I think we talk about that a bit, that there is definitely a psychology to bidding in auctions of that caliber, the Heritage Signature auctions or a Comic Link featured auction, where there's a bit of I don't know, I guess a bit of a release of angst when you miss out on something, and and I'm sure that anyone who's gone through going after even this can happen on lower end auctions, even in their weekly auctions, you might feel a little disappointed and miss out on a few things after that, just because of how anxious I think those auctions can be for some people.
Yeah, I know recently, and I think it was one of the pieces that Chris Norek had picked up in one of your weekly recaps. I picked up a Kieran Dwyer page with a mummy in there, and it was like I had been looking for Kieran Dwyer pages on the weekly auction because they seem to have had them for like 6, 7, 8 weeks in a row, and I always felt like they were going more expensive than I wanted them to go. But then I saw that the trend kept going, so it got to a point where I just probably overpaid for it. But it was like, I keep missing on these, I'm tired of keep missing on these, I'll make a higher bid than I normally would have to just get the page and not have to worry about having a Kieran Dwyer page from that run anymore.
Right. Well, that's sometimes you have to do that, and that we've seen that a lot, right? The last 3 years, I think a lot of people have gotten the pages they wanted, but had to pursue them with that same kind of mentality. I've missed out on the last 3 or 4 that came around. I'm just going to get this one and scratch that itch and move on, so I don't have to worry about it. But that creates a market, because then the next pair of guys that want something from that same issue, or at least that artist on that title, is going to have to pay a little bit higher that next time around. Let's see. Noel Daniels mentions, in response to that earlier question I made, we said another historical piece was the CAF Sentinel of Liberty ad from this era recently surfaced as well. Yep, I remember that. So top essential. Let's see. So Knights of Old is giving us his top 5. So we can put you on the spot, Alberto. This is Knights of Old's top cap artists: Kirby, Simon, Schomburg, Stranko, Zach. What would be your top 5?
As much as I like Simon and Schomburg, I think they were a little bit before my time, so I never really associated with them as much until much later. I would definitely put Kirby and Zach at the top of my list. I would put Epting, which I think you can see the cover right behind me, right there. Steranko was great. I never put him as a top cap artist just because I feel like his run was not necessarily long enough and he didn't do enough to really put him in that list. But I definitely think that the work that he did was just amazing.
That's 3. Got 2 more.
And I do have a Steranko piece that I picked up from Anthony sitting right there.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I remember seeing that.
One of the Dueling Killer shows. At least I have a Steranko piece. Not published, but I'll take it.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, the published ones are pretty hard to come by.
Yes.
A few that are out there. Let's see. B&G want to know, how about Brian Hitch's Ultimates cap? That was good. And Tariq mentions that they loved Sal Buscema's run on cap. Yeah.
I like Neri's run personally. I think he had a fun run in the 80s, I want to say it was. Maybe it was late 70s, early 80s, but I thought his run was great. And then Byrne was around that time too. I think Neri, Byrne, Zek, and that era was probably my favorite and the one that I read the most.
Would you have been picking those up off the newsstand to read them, or was this?
I would have picked them up, I know for sure, in Spain. But again, in Spain, because I had to translate them and combine the issues because of the way they were publishing, they always came out a couple of years after they were published in the US. So sometimes it's hard to keep track of the years or when I read something versus when it came out originally here in the US, just because of that time difference. But yeah.
Well, very awesome. Byrne was one of my favorite caps, but Neri too. I always loved the way he drew cap. I mean, there's certain guys that whose styles I just think were always kind of cool. I did like the way Hitch drew cap and Ultimates as well. I mean, I thought it was kind of an interesting take on him. But yeah, I would probably lean more towards Byrne and I don't know. I don't know. Well, I always love Kirby's version of cap. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Let's see. Insane says, I may have missed a cap only or love for Invaders as well. I guess that's a good question. You didn't mention, Submariner is one of your favorite Marvel Comics characters.
I've read Invaders. I've read all the Avengers just because they had cap. But when I was trying to collect my fears, if I went too broad, I would get too distracted by all the shiny lights, and I would end up trying to get. If you expand to Avengers, then it's like, well, you might as well look into West Coast Avengers, and I like to stay focused, but definitely Avengers is great. I wouldn't mind certain Avengers covers for sure. I wouldn't mind certain Invaders covers for sure. But I've kind of tried to not get tempted by it.
Yeah, Nick Verci says he can't believe that you don't love the Submariner with Daredevil. Well, Nick, I mean, not everybody can have your precise tastes in comics characters, but we know which characters you love.
And I wouldn't want to compete with Nick anyway for all his Submariner art anyway. He can have it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you and Nick seem to cohabitate the art sales pretty well. I think when during one of our shows, I mean, he'll get out of your way sometimes, or you'll get out of his. I think you guys have a good camaraderie in terms of buying, at least in live streams. I mean, when it's in
Nick is just way too nice. I'll put him on the spot here because in every claim show, he seems to always be willing to let other people claim pieces before him, even though he was the first claimer. He's always a gentleman trying to let folks get what they want, and he's always happy to take a step back, which is rare in the hobby, but always truly appreciate it too. So
yeah, I think Nick was one of the first people to like claim something on Dueling Dealers, but then he could tell somebody like the person who came in second wanted it really badly, and he was willing to step back. And since then, you've seen other people do that.
Mhm.
But I think Nick was, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the first people to do that. And yeah, that shows a lot of respect for your fellow collector when you're willing to, let somebody else get a piece that you definitely were interested in, just because it's good to share the wealth, right? At the end of the day, I think the more people. I always like a show that we do where I see new collectors, or if you sell 15 pieces, you had at least 12 people buying them. I think those are always good shows, because it kind of gets the art around, and it means more packing. But at the end of the day, it's somewhat gratifying. And I think people in the chat, watching the show, like to see that too, right? I mean, they like to see new people come in and pick up a piece that you hadn't heard of before. So yeah, well, that's awesome.
Yeah, and James, I was going to list my Aquaman cover, but it didn't make my top 18. But you can find it in my CAF Gallery if you want. I actually do have an Aquaman cover.
Just for you. I didn't know that. James, what is it?
I think I picked it up from one of the dueling dealers as one of my bundle deals that I was like, I'll take 3 or 4 of those pieces together.
Not a bad way to go. Bundling stuff is definitely, shakes more artwork out of Mike and Albert than anything. As long as when they're moving multiple pieces, it helps out a bunch. Well, hey, why don't we want to start looking at some art? I mean, we've got a lot to look at, and I know a couple of the pieces we have to look at have multiple pieces, so a fair number of pieces and things for us to look at and talk about.
Yeah, but I'm sure people are eager to watch Captain America for the next however long we're looking at pieces. So.
It's a very diverse set of artists in these CAF pieces, that's for sure. Let's see. So we started off with that Green Lantern page, but we'll move right along and jump into this next piece here.
Yeah, so I kind of listed them a little bit, kind of in the order that I started collecting things. So this one, I've always been a big fan of Aaron LoPresti, and this was the first actual commission that I ever got from an artist, where I got his contact information and I reached out to him and I told him if he would do a Captain America piece, and he did, and sent it to me. So while you don't necessarily see a lot of art by Aaron, and he doesn't always get a lot of credit, I've always loved his art, and I was really excited to get this as one of my earliest pieces from him. So
you did this as a through the mail. It wasn't you didn't see him at a show. No,
I didn't. I met him at a show later on, but at the time it was via old school email, and then send him a check, and then hope that he didn't scam me, and at some point he would send me the piece of art, and he did.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's not. I can't say that I don't think I ever did that, or maybe I tried. I can't remember, but because most commissions that I've ever done was always something I initiated at a show, where there was some kind of face-to-face communication. But no, that and this is 05. This is right around the period you said you really got started collecting.
Yeah, and I started with mostly sketches, like commissions or con sketches for sure. Yeah, this was, I believe, my first one that I actually asked an artist to do for me, and he did it.
Very nice. CJ, I don't think the A is for Alberto, just so you know.
It could be.
It could be. Yes, it could. The A stands for awesome, Rick Welch says. Yeah, that's true. No, but I always like LoPresti's work too. Just very stylized, always being pretty slick. I mean, this is a very nice piece. I mean, so as a new collector, I would have, if I were you, I would have been really happy to get this piece, because it's just well done. It's exactly what you'd want from a LoPresti piece, and yeah, this would put a smile on my face.
Yeah, the only thing is it was done with markers, which I feel like LoPresti does a lot, and I always worried about how it would last, but I just looked at it recently, and yeah, it's still looking just great, and it's been almost 20 years now. But yeah, sometimes marker pieces scare me a little bit.
Right, I've heard that with the Copic markers, some some over time can start to fade. I mean, I know that Adam Hughes, everybody knows he loves using those, but I think if they're stored properly, there shouldn't be a whole lot of concern for that. I think if you had them, out of a portfolio or in a frame or whatnot, I think you might have more reason to be worried. But the funny thing is, as much as I've heard that, I haven't seen a lot of examples. Maybe people in the chat can send me links after the show where they can show like a before and after piece that was done in Copics or in markers where they fade. I mean, I haven't really seen examples of it. I just hear about it. But yeah, that's when they get to drink at 21. Okay, if they have to get to age 21, it says. But now we've got an Alex Saviuk piece. I love that. So.
And he's usually not associated with CAP, obviously. He's always been more of either the Spider-Man dailies or I think, what was it, Web of Spider-Man or Peter Park Spider-Man. He's been more associated with Spider-Man than CAP, but he was one of the first that I actually approached at a con. I believe it might have been New York Comic Con. I don't know if my CAF Gallery says it. I believe it was New York Comic Con, and I went there, and he was one of the first artists that I saw in Artist Alley, and there wasn't a line, and I just asked him to do a sketch for me, and I just watched him draw this in front of me, which was really cool, and one of my first experiences just really watching that being done. So I've kept that as well as one of my top favorite pieces in there. And again, Marcus, yes, the A is always going to be better than the eagle. I associate the eagle in the cowl more always with Rob Liefeld's run in the 90s for whatever reason. I don't know who else put the eagle in there, but yeah, the A is where it's at.
I completely agree with that. And I skipped one here because I skipped one of the big pieces that we wanted to talk about. But this is a slick piece by Alex. I always liked his style, and you're right. I mean, I wouldn't have thought to have him draw a cap, but this is a really slick cap. Let's see here. I want to bring in this other piece because this is the one that we'll have multiple stuff to look at. But tell me a bit about this one.
So this is one where I bought the published cover first, and then actually Brian Postman, who was the artist on this issue, reached out to me via CAF, sent me an email and saying, hey, it's great to see this cover, and saying that he was the artist, and told me that he had a lot of the pages that he had kept from this issue in there. So I made a deal with him. He also made a commission for me, but that's when I had the crazy idea of trying to work on getting a complete issue of a comic, but I'm stupid and I decided that my first complete comic was going to be one that was an annual and therefore was like 30 something pages or 40 pages. So it was like trying to put two issues together
right
at once. But yeah, so I've been now working on it for like 18 years, very slowly trying to get pages from this issue as they come up. And you can see, and when I got the deal with Brian Postman, he even sent me some of the pages that were prelims to the story, to not just the actual finished pages, which was nice. But you can tell that the inker share is missing because there's about 2 gaps of like 5 or 6 pages that are missing, and they're by the Mulder. And I've tried to reach out and trying to see if those pages might be available, but never had a whole lot of luck in there. The story itself is pretty silly in itself. They have this Jesus-like character in there, and the Cosmic Cube is involved in there. But it was neat to communicate with the artists who work on this issue, Brian Postman, and we emailed back and forth a bunch of times. And like I said, I got a commission from him, and he would email me a lot of other pieces that he was doing for other collectors just to show me what was going on and what he was working on. But if anybody sees any pages from Annual 7, definitely let me know, because there's a couple of big gaps in there. But it has everything in the end that you want to see in CAF. There's pages like this one of him throwing the shield. There's a Quinjet in there. I have some prelims. Like this was a prelim of, I believe the next page has the inked version of it in there. So you can see a little bit of the creative process of it. And I don't think Brian Postman did a whole lot of other Marvel work. His list of credits is not really that extensive, but I liked this art. And like I said, he threw a lot of space, almost Kirby-esque in a way, kind of technology in there, and spaceships and all of that stuff that I thought was really neat. I just regret that I picked the 38-page or 40-page annual to
Right. I mean, you're at 24 pages right now. You could have completed it an interior to a regular size comic at that point, but well, you've set yourself to a monumental task. You'll have a great deal of satisfaction when. I mean, I assume there's pages out there that you know about, or have you managed to get every page that you've seen?
As of last week, I made an offer, and I don't know if it will be somebody that's here on the chat. I actually think it might have been one of the Donnellys, though, on Heritage, because they had the splash to the page that had been sold like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I made an offer, and they accepted it. But yes, otherwise the rest I have not been able to find them. They're definitely not on CAF. But one day.
Well, everybody, if somebody's got them, they know where to sell one if possible. But that's the thing, it's I think like Nick said, it'll be a much sweeter feeling when you do complete this because of the scope of this. I mean, there's not too many people that can say they have a Marvel annual complete issue. I mean, it just I can't think of anybody with an annual as a complete issue. So that would be pretty rare.
We all need goals, right, of some sort.
Of course.
And this will be mine, not hopefully one that I get to complete one day.
I don't know if I got through all 24 pages here, but yeah, this is awesome, and cool that you kind of developed a little bit of a relationship at that time with Postman too, right? I think that's one of the joys we have in this hobby is that we can actually talk to and get to know the artists that whose work we admire, and I don't know. To me, that's one of the coolest parts of this hobby.
Yeah, it's definitely amazing when you get to actually interact, and that's why I started a lot with commissions when I first started, because it was cool to reach out to artists that you liked and ask them to draw a piece just for you, until I started having a couple of bad experiences like I think everybody else has had, and it made me switch to just pick up pieces that are already finished rather than wait months or years for an artist to finish.
That is very true. I think everybody, because I started out with commissions as well, like a lot of people too. I mean, there's some collectors that just dove in and started with published pieces and never looked to commissions, but I started that same way. And yeah, you get burned a few times where you have to wait a little bit longer here or there, and it does sour you to the whole commission experience, when that happens. But
yeah,
you've done pretty well switching over to the published side of things.
Yeah, so
everybody always gives me a hard time, Owen, about my unchecked messages and things. Trust me, when you look at that, I've seen all of those 142 emails that are in there. If it makes you feel better, I'll hover over it and get rid of them. But yes, I do
the same thing too, because I read them when they get forwarded to my email many times, and I don't know
exactly. So yeah, that's how I do it too. But see there, at least I got to see 4. Marcus liked my comment. All right, Marcus, thank you for that. See, that I would never know. We don't let you know about thumbs up and things that people heart or whatever. So did we get to? I think we got near the end of
Yeah,
here.
I think that might have been. That might be the last, or yeah.
Yeah. No, one more. There we go.
There you go. And the end in there.
That's nice.
So yeah, I think this one it said it was page 46, but I think because of the ads, it was only like 38 pages of art or something like that. But yeah, definitely more than I thought I was bargaining for when I decided to try to complete this.
Well, for those of you out there, if you've got any pages to Captain America Annual 7, we would appreciate you reaching out to Alberto through his CAF Gallery and letting him know that you've got them. He would love to talk to you about it. Man, let's see here. So next slide that we've got is a piece by Trimpy. And I love Trimpy's work. And this is cool. This is nice. Where did you obviously you got the show?
It was at a San Francisco. I think it was WonderCon in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And his table was kind of empty and quiet. So I asked him to draw something for me, a cap, and yeah, he drew it and kind of dedicated it to me. It's another one of the pieces that I have here sitting in my desk, right there. Because I always thought artists from that era I loved Trimpy for sure. So I'm happy to have that one in there as well. So yeah, that was in WonderCon in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I'm kind of sad that it's no longer happening in either WonderCon nor SuperCon in San Francisco and San Jose. Those were good conferences, conventions to go to and meet artists for sure.
That is very true. Yeah, when SuperCon was started by Steve Wyatt, and when Morger came in, it became Big Wow. I mean, that was a great show. It really. I didn't get out to WonderCon. I went to maybe 2 or 3 shows there. They were very good for artists too. But yeah, Big Wow and SuperCon were just they were just really unique and very cool experiences. I mean, on par with Heroes or Baltimore, for sure. It was just a great show. Morger was a great host, and now he's playing host to Lake Como this very weekend, which is an artist pack show as well.
Which I'm hoping to go there next year. I've already planted the seed with my girlfriend that, hey, it would be great to go to Italy and she can shop and hang out by the lake and the cafes while I look at the convention and do my thing. So hopefully it will happen next year.
There you go. I mean, that's I keep telling myself that too. It's one of these days I'm going to make it to Como, but maybe next year is the one. But I'm sure we're going to, the thing is, with it being this weekend, we're going to be, I'm hoping to do a live stream with Tatiana. We tried it last year. It didn't work out very well, but I'm hoping on Saturday to maybe squeeze in a live stream with her from the show, which would be pretty cool. And I'm sure we'll be seeing a ton of photos on Facebook throughout the weekend, with stuff going on there. I'm looking forward to that.
And the other thing that I would say about Trimpy that always has bothered me, and I haven't been to as many cons lately, is I always felt like, even back then, it was like 2008, but artists from the Bronze Age or the Silver Age, a lot of those tables would just stay unattended, and a lot of convention attendees were not even paying attention to a lot of those artists. And I personally loved going to them and spending time talking to them and getting some of those cons. In my gallery, I have a Golden Age Green Lantern piece as well that I picked up from artists that were just sitting in Artist Alley without anybody paying a whole lot of attention to them. So it was like, great, I'll go in and I'll swoop in as much art as I can and talk to them and get to share my love of their art with them instead of waiting for 1 hour in an Adam Hughes line. Not that there's anything wrong with Adam Hughes at all, because I love his art, but I don't have enough patience to be in line for just about anything for an hour.
Yeah, me either. But Trimpy was a really nice guy. When we ran Big Wow, he came out one year, and I got to be the person that actually picked him up and dropped him off at the airport. So we got to hang out with him and his wife a bit. And yeah, they were just great people.
Mm-hmm.
And I regret the fact that I didn't. For me, going to that show, I actually never bought anything because I was always working. But I got to hang out with guys like him, so that was the reward. But so I never actually got to buy a piece or ask him to do a sketch. I really do regret that, because I've always, he was an artist to me, in a period when when I was first collecting, like Al Milgram, that another artist that was somebody who I've always admired and always wanted to get something from, and I never. I actually own a Godzilla page from him now, but nothing spandex yet. But at any rate, he's somebody I've always wanted to get something from, and I love his pencil sketch stuff. He's done a lot of cool recreations. I mean, that from his Wolverine Hulk stuff, and he did a number of Hulk covers, and I've seen recreations for those. I'd take one of those if that was all I could get. I'd be happy.
I think he was happy to not get asked to do another Hulk or Wolverine that day, so he worked out very happily.
Yep, that is true. Let's see here. Now, see, this isn't Captain America, everybody.
And that was from the same con also, where I got to meet Sergio in there, and that was great. Being from Spain, Sergio had worked on other stuff before, and I had always loved Gru as well. Even when I was in Spain, before I ever came to the US, I didn't even know, to be honest, that it was big in the US at all. But I saw him at the con, and he had some of these pieces. He had done it before. He didn't draw this one for me. He had them in a small portfolio, but I couldn't just not pick one up. Talked to him for a while in Spanish, of course, and we talked about when he was in Spain and when he came here, and I was telling him the same story and all that stuff, and I just picked up that piece, and I just love having it and remembering again that con experience with him, for sure.
Well, you saw we had him on the show a couple weekends or weeks ago, for the Al Jaffe tribute, and that was my first time to get to speak with him at any length, and I'd seen him so many times. He's in other people's shows and other interviews that he's done online, and he was as great.
Did we lose Bill? Or did we lose me?
Here we go.
I think we lost you for a second there, Bill.
Yes, you did. I was trying to click off the image and I was having problems, but I am back. Yeah, I'm gonna have to text my girls again. What is going on in Florida tonight? I've had no problems all day up until we were doing this live stream. But next up,
that Ranga and Mikhail did with Sergio was great too. So
that is very, very true. And I hope that's not the last, in the series of interviews that they end up doing, because that was a lot of fun. Let me see here. I'm going to switch over. Well, I got to get back over to that other screen, because we've got that one set of images that you had talked about. This was from the San Jose SuperCon 2009.
Yeah, so this was a great opportunity. Brian Peck reached out to me saying that they were going to have this inking panel where they had these blue lines or photocopy pencils from Jack Kirby, and they were going to have a panel with a bunch of different inkers taking their spin on the same piece. And after the con, I know a couple of other pieces are out there on CAF, but there were like 17, I think, or 18 pieces that were available, and I decided to just pick them all up because I thought it was really cool to just see the impact and how so many different inkers can tackle the exact same pencil pieces, right? And some of the inkers I'm not very familiar with, but there were definitely some pretty classic inkers that worked on some of the stuff that I thought was, yeah, a lot of fun to, well, first in the panel to see their approaches, but definitely be able to have those pieces and see all their inked work.
Yeah, this was something fun that that they did a lot with the Supercom and then Big Wow, where they would have a penciler come in and do something like, I remember we had an Adam Hughes one year that many people inked, and and I think there was a Frank Cho one year. So they were always just interesting to see, and that was one of the they were just very innovative in what they did at the shows. They always had the silent auctions going on the show floor, along with stuff like this, and usually because Brian was heavily involved with that show too, so they were always just brainstorming for different ideas to just make the show a little bit more fun than your normal con experience. So like this is a Tone Rodriguez piece. Here's a Tim Vigil, which
there's even like a Will Portasio in there. There's some.
There's a Stuart Sager. I mean, how often would you get Stuart Sager to do a Captain America over Kirby? Pretty much never. So yeah, that's awesome. Oh, here you go. Here's the Portasio. Nice. And that's probably the first time Portasio ever did any inking over a Kirby.
Yeah, it was probably the first time that any of these ever inked over Kirby for sure. But it's really cool, especially I have them all together in one portfolio, and just browsing through the portfolio and seeing everybody's take on it side by side is just really cool.
Yeah. And so do you have this all in like one Itoya?
Yeah. It has its own Itoya just for it, in case I ever get any of the other pieces that other people might that other people took before they got to me. But yeah,
I like this Mick Gray one. That's nice. And a Michael Golden over. Well, look at that. Well, he may have inked over Kirby, or at least worked with Kirby here or there. So let's see. That's nice. Well, that's cool. I'm glad you got those. I always wondered who ended up winning these, because they like you said, they would go up for auction and get sold, and then I never really got to see too many of these after the fact. But Tony DeZuniga too. Wow. Well, slick. I'm glad you did that.
I think that might have been the last year that they did SuperCon, or one of the last years for sure.
Right. I think I came on board with that in like either 11 or 12. I can't recall, and I worked on it until I think 2016 or 2017. So,
okay.
But yeah, no, these are great. Ernie Chan as well. So that's pretty awesome.
Yes, I thought that was a cool part of my collection. It's not really published art or your regular commissions that you would see, and I don't know how many folks have gotten the chance to see any of those inking panels that I thought were a lot of fun, and see so many takes on the exact same page.
Yeah, nope, I completely agree. That's cool. Let's see here. So now here's something classic, right? An early piece.
Yeah. So now we can start. Yeah, this is my Tales of Suspense 59 page. When that came on Heritage, I really wanted to pick up one of the pieces, and I'm glad I was able to pick up. I believe this is the second or the third page, and then not have to stress the rest of the auction about whether I was going to be able to get one of the other pages, because I had my one example. And to me, yes, it doesn't necessarily have Captain American action, but it has all the story in there, with the bad guys kind of planning on what they want to do. They've got Jarvis in there kind of trying to tell them what the plan is and who's going to be on Avengers Mansion that night or whatever. And then just those bottom three panels with Captain America kind of reminiscent over Bucky and looking at pictures of Bucky, and then just getting up and kind of remembering. To me, what's Captain America in that age without his sadness over Bucky and what happened to him and all that stuff. So I was really happy to be able to get this. Plus, it's twice up, so who's going to complain about a twice up page anyway?
Not me. I have actually never owned one, unfortunately. But yeah, no, this is slick. I mean, again, you had to breathe a sigh of relief when you got this one. It was, knowing that you could stop and focus on other things after that one.
Yeah, and even recently, I think I went to when I went to the con in San Francisco a month or so ago, I saw that both Bashara and Glenn had a page from this issue, and they were already marking those pages up a lot more than what I know they got it from. And I was glad that I got this for half of what those other pages went for, as much as I paid for it. So I'm glad I'm not having to hunt down one of these at this point.
No, exactly. And and that's the truth though. When you're bidding at auction, a lot of times you are bidding against other dealers too, which makes it difficult. Because they're buying for resale purposes or whatever, and it does make it challenging. But I mean, again, there were so many people interested in that splash that again, you came in at the right moment to get that piece. So this is one I know we featured not too long ago. So when did you pick this one up?
Yeah, so this one I actually picked it up at that San Francisco con that day from Bashara. He said he had just picked it up, but it was like, I know you just got your Tales of Suspense 59 page, but I actually can get you one earlier than that. And even though it was not technically Captain America because it was the Iron Man story, but he actually appeared in Tales of Suspense 58, and I have a page from that had Cap in there. So I jumped on it. Because it wasn't Kirby, and it was just Dick Ayers, I believe. It was definitely a lot more affordable than what a Kirby page would have cost. And I can say I have a page before Tales of Suspense 59 that still has Cap in it.
Right. No, this is slick, and we featured this one just because it was such a nice page. So congrats on that one. What was the comment here? Mark said he not a fan of Kirby's Cap. Well, art is always subjective at the end of the day. What appeals to me that might not appeal to Alberto might not appeal to you, Mark. I mean, it's okay. It's okay not you don't have to like everything, right? At the end of the day.
He says we're different, and definitely I know some of his art is not for everybody, especially when you compare it to some of the modern art. But I see a lot of people say the same thing about Gene Colan and how his anatomy was in a lot of his art. I love Gene Colan as well, but if people don't like it, it's the more people that don't like it, the more affordable. Hopefully, it means I can get pieces for it anyway.
Oh, that's true. And Mark makes a point that I grew up reading British Commando comics, so realism with period correct weapons matter. No, I exactly. I mean, it comes from that, and I totally understand that. And like you just said, Alberto, like with Gene Colan, I hated Gene Colan when I was a kid reading comics. I'm like, why is this? He's like one of the worst, because at that time when I'm reading comics, I'm comparing him to George Perez and John Byrne, and then I pick up a book that has Gene Colan pencils, and I'm like, how is this guy still drawing? I mean, it just doesn't compare to these other guys who I think are like the greatest comic book artists out there. And but today I don't think that. I mean, I have a totally different view of it. But I thought the same thing of Kirby back then too. It's like, why is he still drawing? But now that I'm a little bit older, I realized that as a kid I just didn't know what I was thinking. But it just goes to show you taste can change. That's for sure. Let's see here. Here we go. So you were talking about Epting earlier, and
so obviously this story lost a lot of its thunder shortly thereafter, because everybody knew that Captain America was not going to stay dead for too long. But this is I really like this page. It's from a couple of pages before he actually gets shot. This is when he's carried around in this kind of prison tank thing, and they let him out, and he's going to go up the stairs, and that's when he gets shot after that. But that's from a great story that I think was very memorable, and I loved Epting's art all along. And kind of this page looks pretty somber. Even the soldiers in there look like they're not really excited to be doing their job or whatever. And Captain America just comes out of his transport and heading in to be judged and eventually shot. But yeah, so I thought it was a great page for sure, and representative of that Epting run, and some of the dark moments in that Epting run.
Sure. No, I mean, when every time I see an Epting page from Cap, I mean, I'd love to own it, just because he not only is, they always say, when an artist is like on the top of their game, but he was just the right artist for that job. And I mean, and I see a page like this and I'm just blown away at the technique, that he uses, and it was just so perfect for this storyline.
Yeah, the amount of detail when you look at the page itself, even in that panel there with all the trees behind the vehicle in there, the branches on the trees, and the buildings kind of on those top panels where Bucky, Winter Soldier, is doing his thing. There's a lot of detail that you have to look at the page itself to really appreciate it.
Well, that's a beauty. So do you think you have all the Epting Cap that you need now?
I think so.
Yeah.
I know Anthony always keeps looking at me whenever he has a new Epting page in Dueling Dealers, but it gets to a point where I think I have a lot. So it's going to take a very special page for me to want to get more Epting pages, for sure.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, because I know you own several, so yeah, you can only own so many, and feel like you need to move on to something different. Let's see here. Now this is a doozy, right? I mean, this is such a classic image of Cap.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite pieces, and it's the one that I think you can see. Where is it? You cannot really see it from here. I have it pointing on that side of the room, but so I look at it whenever I actually enter my office. But yeah, to me this is quintessential Kirby for sure. I know Mark might not think that the weaponry in here is very accurate, and it probably isn't at all, not even close. But just even Dawn's Early Light, even just the title kind of, I think, represents kind of Captain America and the national anthem in there, and Captain America just taking charge, and a typical Kirby pose in there, with probably that hand that's holding the shield being a little bit bigger than it should have been in a normal drawing, but that's the way he did it, and that's what I love about Kirby for sure. Yeah, one of those pages that I think I'm definitely never letting go of. Although maybe I should never say never, but
Do you sell a lot? I mean, that was something I meant to ask you earlier.
I have not sold a lot, and even for Comic Art Live this time, I was like, maybe I can put a couple of pieces out, but I just can never get myself to post any pieces for sale. I just can't. Maybe that will change at some point, but unless I really am in a hole financially and I need to make some money, I don't see myself really getting rid of any of the Cap art for sure. Maybe that Aquaman cover that I have, someone in the audience here will be interested in getting it, but I don't think any of the Cap stuff for sure.
Yeah, no, very true. I wouldn't blame you. And you can talk about Kirby's anatomy or whatever, like you said, maybe the hand's too big, but so many artists I think borrowed things from Kirby through, so I don't think he certainly wasn't all wrong. His style worked really well. You look at like Eric Larson's style, definitely borrows a lot from the way Kirby approached anatomy and perspective and things. And I think that's what makes Kirby's art unique at the end of the day. And this is such a classic image. You're right when you say even a Kirby pose, right? I mean, that was kind of he just did this so well. So congrats on having this in your collection, Alberto.
And I know a lot of people kind of say that Kirby, once it came back to Captain American issues 200 and later, was not the same as the early Cap work that he did. But to me, this is a perfect example that he still had the gift to draw Captain America even after issue 200. So yeah.
Very nice. And Frank Giacoya inks on this one as well. That's good complimentary inker for him. So next up, a little bit different era, but a great Tim Sale Cap piece here.
Yeah, and Tim Sale pieces seem to have been going crazy lately. I know a lot of his Captain America white covers were on sale in Comic Link for a few months in a row. It seemed to be like every monthly auction had one of the covers. I never went for some of those because those covers were the ones where the image was only like 2/3 of the page or maybe half of the page, and then the trade logo was below it. So to me, even if it was a cover, I wanted to have a bigger image for sure. So I saw the splash and I love the shadow work that Tim Sale built in there. Ultimately, he has there's a full Captain America in there. There's the bad guys all around the corner. He's ready to beat them up. There's even the Hydra logo up there right above his head. So it's just a great example of a Tim Sale piece. And I love the composition of it, the fact that it was kind of diagonal and not just flat drawing. It was just a great piece, and I just had to get it.
Now, is this something that you would have bought directly from his rep, or did you get this in the aftermarket?
No, this one, unfortunately, I got it in the aftermarket. I think maybe 3 or 4 months ago, fairly recent pickup. I wish I had gotten it from, I believe it was Jason who was repping Tim Sale until unfortunately he passed away. But yeah, I was always tempted. And he actually, when I bought some pieces from Jason before, he had sent me a couple of prints of Tim Sale Captain America pieces. But by then, a lot of these pieces had already been sold. Otherwise, I would have loved to pick them up when I could directly from him.
Mm-hmm. No, well, you got a great example here. I mean, the dynamic lighting on the piece is great. Like you said, the perspective, tipping it at, 45-degree angle, just adds so much to this piece. So no, this is a beautiful example of his work. Now we get a Zek and Beatty cap cover that's over 40 years old. Look at this beauty.
Yeah, and I picked this one over the other one that I had with Zemo just because I loved when I picked up this cover that he had Captain America, but also Spidey in there and Nick Fury and the villain as always. So I know the collector who owns 266, and we've had endless debates as to which one is better, 265 or 266, and I think we're both sticking to liking the one that we own better than the other one. But I think I love the way just this one is, with both heroes kind of being held by those robots in there, and Nick Fury kind of on the floor, and the Sultan not knowing what's coming to him, just talking crap.
Yeah, and look at all the detail in this thing too, all the machinery in the background. I mean, this is a busy cover, but it works so well, and it's one of the 10-speed racer covers as well. So there's just so much on this thing, but it's beautiful. I think
all that trade, all that, it looks a little bit like a NASCAR car with that ad at the bottom with the Win a Columbia 10-speed racer.
Yep.
Formula 10 that I think takes a little bit away from the art, but I think at the same time, that's what the cover looked like back in the day. So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I was buying these off the, at the drugstore at the time, so I remember, this period very well, as I'm sure many collectors do as well. Yeah, Marcus found the found a bicycle. Thank you, Mike or Marcus, for that one. I like that. But no, this is just, it's gorgeous. I mean, Zach, like I mentioned, Zach, and for me, Cap, I think of Zach, I think of Byrne, as two of my more popular, for me, artists of on his run. So this is pretty cool to see. I've always wanted to get an interior page by Zach, and I've just, the few times I've actually bid on them, I mean, they always command a good price. There's a lot of collectors that would love it, they need a Zach Cap in their, in their collection. So it's just always going to be tough to get one.
Yeah, I mean, still more affordable than Punisher, but I think, they're up there. Now,
this one here, I believe I did see on your back wall. So this one's,
yes,
you get to look at this one every day as well.
And I love, and I'm not even sure how he did it, but the way he does the background with the washed tones for sure, and all the detail that he puts not only in the bridge, but in the Black Widow right behind him, and kind of the jungle scene behind him, how it's all kind of faded out, and then the big image of half Captain America and half Winter Soldier, one with the shield and one with the gun in there. Just, to me, is an incredible cover by Epting for sure. And yeah, you have to see it in person to appreciate all that detail in the background for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what when you see his interior pages too, he always seemed to have that subtle details that would go on in the background that just really defined his artistic style. I mean, and this is just a perfect example of his work. I mean, like you said, it's got that crisp, tight shading that he was able to get in the main figure there, and then doing all that delicate work in the background. It's gorgeous. It's a really, really beautiful piece by him.
And I never really liked Epting art when he was working on Avengers, and I don't know if part of it might have been Tom Palmer inking, or just it was his earlier style and he just evolved into Captain America. But I think his run in Captain America was just incredible. As much as I could never get into his Avengers art. You might be muted.
My audio was having a problem. Boy, I'll tell you, I'll be happy when this when the internet fixes itself around here. But yes, I was all I said was, you probably didn't hear it, was that I didn't like his Avengers art as much either. I really felt the Cap work was his best. But going on with the Cap theme here, let's take a look at this one. So we have a John Romita Jr. and Klaus Janson image that is so classic. And I mean, who doesn't love a really well drawn character running through rain? I mean, but this one is just insane.
Romita and Janson and the rain just seems to be something that maybe it's just me and they haven't done it so many times, but I feel like they've done it plenty of times and it always looks great for sure. But yeah, just the detail, even the fact that they spent all that time just drawing the lines on the rain in the page, trying to get this done, is amazing. But yeah, otherwise it's the iconic pose. I have a very similar cover that was made by Romita as well. That was for the AAFES issue, which is a free issue that Marvel would do for the military people, where Captain America was wearing more of his newer movie type costume instead of this classic costume. So I'm glad that I was able to get this one as well, and that I didn't have to fight Nick Barucci for this one, because I think out of the 10 Captain America covers that Romita did, between the two of us, we have 7 of them or 8 of them. I have 4, and he has 3 or 4 as well. So we've cornered that market, I feel, pretty well. And I'm glad we have this one because he's always a gentleman.
Well, here I actually I dug up this one over here in your CAF since you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really slick too. Yeah, a nice kind of comparison piece, from because of the costume differences. But again, you get John Romita Jr. and Jansen again on here, and wow, yeah, that's gorgeous too. But I thought that was fun that you mentioned that when we were looking at the Zek cover, the idea that some of the relationships you've had with other collectors, thinking that my cover is better than your cover. I mean, those are the kind of fun conversations that you can have with your fellow collector, where it's neither one of you has to be right or wrong, but it's part of the joy that we have in the hobby.
Yeah, and ultimately they're all great, and we're just happy to have one. So yeah, there's no room for rivalry, I think, except just friendly banter for sure.
Exactly. And Nick says that you both have 4 of those covers.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have sequential. So he's maybe that's a little bit better, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. That at the end of the day, just having any of those covers would be pretty awesome. But yeah, let's see what we have here for the next piece. And here we go. Some John Byrne Cap, and this is from issue 291. The cover to that.
Yeah, Attack of the Tumbler. I know the Tumbler had showed up very early on in Captain America's history, even though nobody really remembered it. I think for a while I thought it was Batroc just because of his leaping ability into the shield, but no, it's a Tumbler. But yeah, this is typical Byrne. I feel like his face for sure, his pose, just kind of holding the shield, and yeah, the impact of the villain on the shield is just a great cover. I would have loved some of the Byrne covers that he did with the what was it, Baron Blood, or the Dracula kind of the vampire stories that he did, but I was happy to ultimately just have a Byrne in there. This was my first Byrne piece that I ever had. I know recently I was able to get from Will the first appearance of Bernie Rosenthal from earlier issue of Captain America, which is cool to have a panel page by him. But yeah, this is another cover that I have out there on the wall in my office looking at every day.
This is yeah, I love this. And I mean, this era of Byrne's work is just some of my favorite. I mean, I love his time he spent on X-Men, but when he was doing Cap and FF and even She-Hulk, I really liked his style at that stage of his career. But yeah, this is pretty incredible. I love this piece a lot. And just you kind of said something else that's interesting. There are other cool Byrne covers out there from the run, right? I mean, you'd rather have this one or that one, but still you've got a really great example at the end of the day.
Yeah, when it comes to certain artists, you cannot be necessarily as picky when you pick an example, because some of those are going to fetch such a much higher price that when you get an opportunity to just get one, you just have to jump at it. I mean, it's no slouch by any means, and it's still an amazing cover, even though I might not have remembered it as much as some of the other covers that he did, but it's amazing to just have it there.
Yeah, Jeff mentions that he pretty much likes Byrne doing his own inking, and I did too. Early on, I thought Byrne did a great job inking himself. I mean, later stuff maybe not as much, but certainly when he transitioned to doing his own inking on his stuff during that time period, yeah, I thought he was. You knew you were getting exactly what John wanted out of his pages and his artwork when he was doing his own inking then. Let's see here. Now, do you work from home? Do you get to sit there in the space and look at that art every day?
I did over COVID.
Yeah.
Now working at Apple, like most tech companies, they're starting to try to push us to go at least 3 days a week
Mm-hmm.
to the office, which I kind of miss. And I try to find excuses to not go to the office as much as I should, even if it's just making up a cough, because I know people will be nervous at work the moment somebody starts coughing in a conference room.
Right.
And that will continue, at least for the time being. But I work at least 2 days per week from home, so I get to enjoy all this art
That's great.
every day.
Well, look at this one. Now, this we were talking about that other, like the Zec Cap cover with the amount of detail in it, and then we switch over to something like this. Same amount of thought going into the composition of the page and the amount of detail, but this is just I'm kind of speechless because this is just an awesome cover. I love the inking on it, and it's just kind of what makes a fun Captain America and the Falcon cover.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have the full bodies, right? It has the famous Kirby floating heads that at the same time are always fun, and I enjoyed. I don't know how many other artists did all these floating head stuff, but Captain America and the Falcon are there. The rest of the image is just so detailed. Lots of bricks for sure, lots of guys tied up, and when a villain is called the Swine, what do you expect at the same time? It just
exactly. But and I forgot. I'm kind of looking at your CAF gallery on the side. I mean, you could have picked even that Cap 210 splash page. That's you got a lot of really nice Kirby examples in your CAF gallery, Alberto.
Yeah, I think I'm lucky in that aspect that I don't feel like I need to get a Kirby anymore. I'll still pick them up if I can afford them at the right price, but I got the examples that I wanted. I think for sure they're inked by different folks. I have some Chick Stone, some Jacoya, some who else has done it? I don't think I've always wanted a good example of a Sinat inking Kirby, which I don't feel like I have. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy with the Kirbys that I have for sure.
Yeah, it's just like that one there. I mean, that's a great page. Even though Cap's only in that first panel is incredible. I mean, what a gorgeous page. And then where was the other one? I mentioned here the title page to Cap 210. Yeah, I think I saw this one in person. It's amazing. I mean, so this is just some great stuff. Great periods, from Marvel 1977. I mean, it looks like the Showdown Day. Wow, that's I mean, who doesn't love a hand lettered title in there on a title page too? So that's like.
Yeah, another example. This one was inked by Royer, for example, so you can tell the differences between Jacoya or Royer. This one, this one's all about the tech background, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Typical Kirby tech in there.
Definitely. No, I mean, that's, again, how many pages by Kirby in here? Like 9. I mean, so that's not so bad. No, 12. So 12 pages in here. Yeah, I mean, and you've got some pretty killer examples. But like you said, you were just mentioning Sinat. Getting something that's Sinat inked as well would, if you saw a Kirby Sinat piece out there, Cap piece, that might sway you to get another page or two.
Yeah, if it was a good example, for sure. I'd love to get that. I know Sinat also usually has a big number of fans that usually his prices ended up going pretty high compared to Royer, for example. But I'll find it one day.
Well, they are out there. Let's see here. We've actually only got one other piece to look at, and that was the Gil Kane cover.
Yeah, and again, I don't think Gil Kane honestly gets enough credit as an artist. I love this cover. It's definitely one of my favorites as well. It has Captain America is just charging with four guys shooting guns at him, and the bullets just ricocheting off the shield, and he's just going in there, and Hour of the Hero in there, right? It's just an amazing job by Gil Kane. And again, that one's sitting up there in the wall behind me as well. So it's, yeah, I don't know why Gil Kane has just never seemed to have gotten enough credit for any of the work that he's done.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't say why either. I mean, he was pretty prolific, and I don't know. I mean, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't typically talk about Gil Kane, in our top 10 or 15, artists from that era for whatever reason. But and more or less people kind of focus in on things like how a Kirby or a nose that he would draw, right? A Kane nose. And Jeff Moy says, I like Gil Kane on Green Lantern. That's true. That's actually really true. I think Kane on Green Lantern was pretty amazing. His work on that title was awesome. But it's funny. I mean, when you think of his Marvel work, even for me, I don't feel like I think of anything and that sticks out as like being that's like exemplary from him. And I don't know why. But I mean, this is a great piece, and it's everything you'd want in a Kane piece. He was great at composition. Figure work was top notch. He came in at a time where I think that the focus on anatomy and things was very different. I mean, he was great at it, and so and Nick even mentions, even though he did an incredible body of work in the 70s at Marvel, it's true. It's kind of odd, when you mention that. So you're absolutely right that he is somebody who does not get the accolades that he deserves.
And in Cap, maybe it's just that he followed Kirby, which is a tough act to follow, whoever kind of came after him, right? Because I'm not sure when the last Kirby cover was in the 200 run, but it must not have been that much before this one anyway. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
That's possible, definitely. But no, for a tremendous artist. And I mean, I know he influenced a lot of people. I mean, didn't Howard Chaykin study under Gil Kane? I mean, I think, or at least he interned at some level with them, I recall. But yeah, no, a great artist. So yeah, it's fun. For those of you who haven't visited Alberto's CAF Gallery in a while, I'll throw the link in the chat. I'm pretty sure it's in the description as well. But throughout the show, I was just browsing through your gallery, Alberto, and you've just got. I mean, I know it's very CAF centric, but man, you just have so many great examples in here. We could have probably picked double the number of pages to talk about, and we still wouldn't have run out of great pieces to look at.
Yeah, and it's definitely CAF centric, and I think most of the non-cap pieces you're going to find in there, I think, have been from artist shows that you have done, Bill, or that Nick have done to help support artists that might need help for whatever reason. And I'm always happy to pick up pages from artist shows, because knowing that the money goes to the artist and it's them selling it many times directly, I think is always fun, especially after hearing them talk about those pieces. I love picking up a lot of the stuff, and that's where you'll see a lot of my other pieces, including some of those Linsner pieces that I picked up that will be coming soon and all that stuff. Absolutely nothing to do with Captain America, but always happy to help our artists and support them for sure.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. Here's a question for you from Murph Snoopy. Ron Garney is one of their favorite Captain America artists. Is his work on your want list? I know you have a few pieces by Garney in your CAF.
I don't have as much Garney as I would like. Nick knows I've been pestering him for some Garney art, and he was incredibly generous to give me one Garney cap page once. but he knows I definitely want more Garni representation. I think I would love a cover from him. There's a collector on CAF that has a lot of Garni covers, and no matter how much I've tried to approach him, he says he's never going to let any of them go, but I'll keep pestering him until one day, hopefully, he will change his mind. But I think Garni was amazing as a cap artist as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I've always loved Garni's stuff, and he was great at his cap work. That's for sure. And Nick Perucci reminded me of Gil Kane, and he drew the death of Gwen Stacy and the death of Green Goblin. Yeah, it's ironic that Gil doesn't have the fame that he deserves for having done work like that. That's so true. I don't know why I always forget that as well, Nick. But again, it's just something odd about Kane. Kane, Captain Marvel. Marcus reminds us too about Gil Kane. Very true.
And talking about that Zach cover, I see that Rick Romanas has just joined the chat. He's the one that argues with me about whether the Zach cover for 265 or 266 is better. He owns 266. Another big Captain America fan for sure. So I know he was excited when he got to pick up that Captain America 266 cover, and with good reason, because it's an amazing cover. But you missed the debate where everybody agreed that 265 was better, Rick.
That is true. We all agreed. We put a vote to the chat, Rick, and we said 265 was better than 266. We'll have Rick on, and then we'll do a vote, and everybody will say it's 266, not 265.
Rick has created a great Facebook group for Captain America fans, for sure. So if anybody enjoys Captain America, he has a great Facebook group, and he does a great podcast where they go in depth over a lot of the Captain America issues, and they had some great interviews with Roy Thomas and other key people in the history of Cap. So yeah.
Oh, cool. I don't think I've seen that one. So a Facebook group just for Captain America. You'll have to send me an invite, Alberto.
Yeah, I'll send you an invite, Bill, for sure. But it's a fun show, and his podcast is a lot of fun, especially like me now that I have to drive to the office 45 minutes each way a day. It's nice to have that podcast to listen to every week.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. And Rick, you feel free to email me the link to the podcast too, wherever I can listen to it. I assume it's probably on all of the normal places you can get them. Well, so Alberto, I knew this was going to be fun. We knew we were going to be talking about a lot of Cap stuff, but at the end of the day, these are good for me too, because it makes me revisit, the collector's CAF gallery and really just go back through and look at a lot of stuff. So, I mean, you've been a great patron to the shows that we've done since we've been doing, sales shows on the channel for us and for Nick. And, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, but yeah, you've made a very positive mark in the hobby in the short time that you've been a part of it. And I just want to, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time that you've done, just spent with us and just been hanging out on CAF. I mean, you've been a member since 2005. So almost 18 years. So pretty much from the time you joined or you started collecting art, you joined CAF, which I think is awesome because that gave you a kind of a place to at least start meeting other collectors and everything too. So that worked out really well.
Yeah, it's definitely fun for sure. And yeah, I love attending the shows as much as I can. Sometimes it's tricky because 6 p.m. every day is in the middle of dinner time, West Coast, and getting home from work. But I try to always, for sure, make an appearance and try to bore everybody with my Captain America stories. I'm surprised there's still 57 people watching after almost 2 hours of Captain America.
Well, everybody's curious. I mean, it's hey, but Mikhail, he's kind of going off topic, and he said also please make the iPhone autocorrect a little bit better. You can.
I'll get right on it.
Oh man!
Idea how many times my iPhone tries to text the word duck to people, even when I try to text something else. I'm pretty tired of ducks at this point.
Yeah,
But
I can
yes.
imagine. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat here. But I guess the last question. This is, it's not an art question, but BNG wanted to know, in your opinion, is Cap the best hand-to-hand combatant, or is there someone better? I mean, if you had to pit him against Batman, I mean, maybe he's got a.
I think he kicked Batman's butt for sure. I think you can start trying to think of people like Shang-Chi or Iron Fist or some of those people that are specific martial artists maybe might have a lead on him. They don't seem to be as muscular. All those other guys seem to be pretty skinny. So I still think Cap could eventually outpower them and kick them wherever they need to get kicked and beat them up.
Oh man. And parting word from Ricky said, Alberto is my friendly Cap rival. I love his collection and we chat all the time. That's good. See, I mean, it's the friends we make. Everybody says Batman cheats though, so I get it. Cap wouldn't cheat, but he'd still probably win, I think. Well, listen, Alberto, this was a lot of fun. I do appreciate it. I appreciate, like I said, everything that you do for the channel and everything that just sharing your collection on CAF too. I mean, that's a lot of artwork that you've posted to the site in 18 years. So, I mean, you have to be dedicated to it. And, I sincerely appreciate the fact that you're still an engaged CAF member after all that time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, art has to be shared, and I don't have enough space to have my scanner hooked up all the time. So whenever I scan pieces, usually that's when you'll see that I'll do like 10, 15 pieces at a time, because I usually wait, and it might be a month or so before I post anything. Then I post a bunch of stuff because I just hook up the scanner, get them all scanned, and then take it away and hide it in a closet. Again, those 11 by 17 scanners are big.
Very true. Yeah, I'm in the same. I do the same thing. I'll usually scan 20 pieces at a time, and then wait another month before I actually then upload them, because I just can't do it all. I love the fact that there are so many collectors that can scan stuff as they get it in. I have never been that collector. So, hey, well, okay. One last question, just from Mikhail. It's not an art related question, but again, it's a Cap question. Who's Alberto's favorite girlfriend for Cap? I mean, can there be one?
I will still say Sharon in general. But I think in every phase there's been one. I think Bernie had a great run, and I know she was kind of revived for other purposes, not necessarily as Cap's girlfriend, in more recent history as well. Yeah, but I would say Sharon is probably the best one. And it looks like Rick agrees with me. So when a big Cap fan like Rick agrees, I will take it.
There you go. Well, listen, again, thank you. And thank you, everybody in the chat. This was a lot of fun tonight. And, you were on my list for a long time, Alberto. So I'm glad we finally got this taken care of.
Thanks for having me, for sure. And I'm sure I'll be around to some extent tomorrow for Dueling Dealers as usual for the Wednesday shenanigans that always come along with that.
Yes, and it will be shenanigans. I'll tell you, because originally, Mike Berkey is not going to be there tomorrow. We were going to do just an Anthony art drop, and then we came up with a concept for the show. It is going to be $1,000 and under show, but essentially, I'm going to be playing Mike's role, and we have a special guest that's going to be the MC for the show tomorrow. So I can't tell you how it's going to turn out, but and it's not Sharon. It's it's not.
Just tell me it's not going to be James, because he seems to be having a lot of technical problems lately.
Yeah. Well, hey, I had him tonight too. For that's like the first time. I don't think maybe once or twice in 3 years have I had problems, but no, it won't be James either. It's someone who has never spent more than just a few moments, I think, in a few of the shows, but they've been on a few times. So yeah, it's going to be different. I can't promise it's going to be wonderful, but I think it's going to be fun. So yeah, everybody, that's your tease. I actually I changed the graphic to the show, and I said, who is our mystery host? So yeah, you'll have to tune in to see, because I won't be reading the intro either. They will. So that's I think they've been practicing. I sent them the monologue and just said, learn it. You gotta say it like you mean it. So anyway,
Awesome.
thanks again, Alberto, and thanks to everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Enjoy